Welcome to another Quran study. God willing, today we'll be reading from Surah number 81, verse 28. Let's all seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. 81:28. For those who wish to go straight, whatever you will is in accordance with the will of God, Lord of the universe. So this is referring to the Quran, which is, God says, is a message for those people who wish to go on the straight path. And God says, whatever you will is in accordance with the will of God, Lord of the universe. So basically, we all understand that, as far as God is concerned, God already knows what decisions we're going to make, and they're all in accordance with God's will. And God's system dictates that, if you choose to be guided, if you are seeking guidance, if you want to be guided, God will guide you in the straight path, and you cannot even take heed against God's will. So if you're not sincere, God will not guide you, and you will not be guided because it's in accordance with God's plan. And if you truly want to be guided, God will guide you, and anything, regardless, whatever happens, everything is in accordance with God, with God's will. So those people who wish to go straight, this message will guide those people in the straight path, and those who wish to be crooked, this message will just flare up their egos and cause them to go astray and go to hell. We understand that the hypocrites are destined for the lowest pit of hell, and a lot of people will be hypocrites and will use this Quran to justify their nefarious actions. On the other hand, the believers will use it to grow their soul and to get closer to God and to get the most out of this message. Surah 82, the shattering, Al-Infitar, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. When the heaven is shattered, the planets are scattered, the oceans are exploded, the graves are opened, every soul will find out what caused it to advance and what caused it to regress. So this is referring to the shattering. This is one of the names of the Day of Judgment. It will be the day when the heaven, as we know it, is going to be completely shattered, and all the planets will be scattered. I mean, you can imagine the chaos on that day. The oceans will be exploded and the graves will be opened. So all the people will be restored from the grave, as nothing remains on this planet and around in the universe as we know it on that day. And God says on that day, every soul will find out what caused it to advance and what caused it to regress. So we all have a videotape of our, actions, our whole life being recorded, by ourselves, by the recording angels, and we'll be able to access that record and see everything that we did, and we will find out exactly, what caused us to be where we end up on that day. Reflect on God's creations. O you human being, what diverted you from your Lord, most honorable, the one who created you, designed you, and perfected you? In whatever design he chose, he constructed it. Indeed, you disbelieve in the religion, oblivious to the fact that there are invisible keepers around you. They are honest recorders that record everything you do. So, these verses are talking about reflecting on God's creations. So we have to reflect on how God created us. It says, He's your Lord, most honorable. He's the one who created you, designed you, and perfected you. In whatever design he chose, he constructed us. So, among other things, this verse also points to the fact that God, not only did he design and create the human being, he perfected his design, So he not only did he just create our bodies so that we can live and just come down to earth and survive. He actually designed it to perfection, right? So what does that mean? If God has designed something to perfection, can we do anything, to make it better? I mean, can we humans do anything to make anything better that God says He has perfected? I mean, obviously, imagine if someone created a perfect machinery, right? Let's say, I don't know, let's say some really world-renowned genius, a scientist, create something and it's been perfected. And then someone like me and you come and say, I think I can make it better. But thing is, we're talking about God, He's the one who created us. And there are humans who think that they could make it better. People, for example, I mean, you guessed it, I'm going to talk about circumcision. So who think that it is better, if you don't have certain parts of your male genitalia, that it should be cut off, that it's bad for you. And that they can make it better. They can make it look nicer and better and functioning better. They think it's good for you. But God says He has perfected it. He has perfected, and He specifically mentions the human being. He's not talking about the ducks and the monkeys. He's specifically talking about the human beings here, right? And so what diverted you? I mean, imagine this question being so relevant on the Day of Judgment to people who have invented things like that, What diverted them from what God has created, So God has perfected everything. He has designed you, and you have to appreciate His design, and you have to acknowledge Him, and you have to follow His laws. And God says, indeed, you disbelieve in the religion, oblivious to the fact that there are invisible keepers around you. God says we have 2 recording angels specifically designated for each person to record their life. They're with us as witnesses on the Day of Judgment. In addition to our jinn companion, they witness everything, and we'll have the videotape accessible to us by the jinns. I mean, God knows what His system is, how that will be. I mean, it's beyond imagination. I mean, if you think about previously it was probably unthinkable, but now with the technology, I mean, you can see how you can record everything. You have multiple cameras, and they can record and combine stuff into very realistic and detailed images and sound and everything, right? So it's not difficult for God to do. He's the creator of the entire universe, and He knows what's the best way to preserve our life record, And now even the scientists are beginning to discover that other sensory organs besides the brain have certain types of memory of their own, and they have like brains of their own and all this kind of stuff, right? Which was unheard of. But we know that even God will even allow our skins and our hands and our feet to even testify against us on that day. So and this is something that we have to remember. I mean, as we go about our day and as we do things in life, I mean, do we really believe that we are being watched? I mean, we're literally, every move that we're doing is being recorded. I mean, imagine how our behavior and our attitude, suddenly change when we are aware that someone else is looking at us or someone else is watching us, I mean, there is a slight difference, but we know that everything that we're doing is being watched, and we're being judged as we speak for every action that we do, every utterance that we make, every thought that goes in our heads. I mean, everything we're being held accountable for, right? And God says they record everything you do, so nothing is left out. So 24/7, you're being recorded. Verse 13 says, surely the pious have deserved bliss, while the wicked have deserved hell. Will incur it on the Day of Judgment. They never leave it. Awesome is the Day of Judgment. What a day, the Day of Judgment. That is a day when no soul can help another soul, and all decisions on that day will belong to God. Now, God says that obviously the pious have deserved bliss. The wicked have deserved hell. This is what they have incurred. They have deserved it. God doesn't want to put anybody in hell, but this is what the human being wants, and the human being insists on going to hell. So how do you insist on going to hell? Because you are shown the right path, you're being invited, but you don't want the right path. You keep wanting to go on the wrong path, right? So these people insist on going to hell. They're adamant and stubborn about their ways, and they don't want to listen. So they incur it, and then they never leave it, God says. And God says, awesome is the day of judgment. So we talked about that actually in the last study, right? That the day of judgment is awesome now. Awesome doesn't necessarily mean that it's like super cool. Awesome means that, it's a day that is awesome in its tremendous powers, its terror, and God says, what a day, the day of judgment, that is the day then when no soul can help another soul, and all decisions on that day will belong to God. So imagine it like, let's say, you just go through like, God says on the day of judgment, everybody will witness hell, right? So imagine going through, even just imagine for the believers, right? I mean, God says they'll be very happy on that day because they have been saved, but you're not going to look back in that day and say, oh, that was so cool. Like every majority of people on earth, as we know it, just went to hell, and it was a gruesome experience. But there's no other way to define it than just a horrifying, terrible, difficult, most difficult point in your life when you were at the brink of going to hell, right? And it's a day we thank God and we're happy even if we make it. But this is not how you're gonna have. This is not how you express your sentiment. And think about hell is, when we think about hell, it should worry us, because we could end up going there. Up until then, like, I can't think of hell in any other way, other than the part that I could end up being there, God forbid, right? And my life is on the line, literally, quite literally. My eternity, I could be doomed forever, right? You and I could be. So we are serious about our reservation against hell. It's not easy. It's horrible, and God says it's awesome. It's really something that so awesome that will make the infant's gray hair. That will make a woman abort her fetus. So, it's not something to be taken lightly, God says, right? So we have to think about that. And God, the reason why all these surahs are reminding us over and over about these events, so that we can think about it and be mindful, and not take this world and these chances that we're being given lightly in any way. So Surah 83, the cheaters, Al-Mutaffifin. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. Woe to the cheaters who demand full measure when receiving from the people, but when giving them the measures or weights, they cheat. Do they not know that they will be resurrected on a tremendous day? That is the day when all people will stand before the Lord of the universe. So so this verse, this surah is titled "The Cheaters," right? And why is it so relevant? Because, if you look at the world today, the biggest cheaters that you will find are the people who God gave the Quran to, And you look at the world's most corrupt countries, and you find that the most, there's corrupt people everywhere, right? But you'll see that the most corrupt are the ones that have the Quran, and obviously they're hypocrites. But this surah is there nevertheless. They don't talk about this surah like they talk about Muhammad every day on TV. If they started talking about this surah, maybe more people would turn righteous, But they're too obsessed with their idols, talking about how glorious they are and how they abuse other verses. They don't want people to see these verses. you know. But these verses are there, and God says these people that demand full measure when receiving from the people, but when giving, they cheat. You know. Now this can happen, not just in trade, right? I mean, this can happen in business. This can also happen at your job. I mean, you could be getting a salary, and certain things are expected of you. I mean, you're supposed to be fair. You know, if you're being paid for your services, you're supposed to give your services, right? As simple as that. Doesn't matter if you're an employee or your business, but you shouldn't be cheating people, right? Of course, I mean, we're human and we will tend to make mistakes, or we may get tired and whatnot, and you know, you don't want to drive yourself nuts and be overstressed, but you have to be fair. You know, you have to work within reason and make sure that God is watching. Obviously, you know, you're giving your charity, also obligatory charity, that also kind of purifies your money to a certain extent, like the messenger jokes about it, like you're sleeping on the job and all this stuff, you know. So certain things happen, but there's outright people who are cheating, you know, who are telling people that they're offering this and this service, and then they're not, you know, and they're cheating. They're charging people for things that they don't provide, right? And so when it comes to giving service, they cheat, but when it comes to wanting money, they want every single penny. And God says, do they not know that they will be resurrected on a tremendous day? That is the day when all the people will stand before the Lord of the universe. Numerically structured books. Indeed, the book of the wicked is in Sijin. Do you know what Sijin is? A numerically structured book. Woe on that day to the rejectors. They do not believe in the day of judgment. None disbelieves therein except the transgressor, the sinful. When our revelations are recited to him, he says, tales from the past. Indeed, they will be isolated on that day from their Lord. Then they will be thrown into hell. They will be told, this is what you used to deny. Indeed, the book of the righteous will be in Iliyin. Do you know what Iliyin is? A numerically structured book, to be witnessed by those close to me. So these verses, you know, are talking about how these people that are you know, living this life of you know, dishonesty and cheating, that these people do not really believe in the hereafter. You know, people who are cheaters and people who are dishonest, people who take other people's properties and money. God says these are not people who believe in the hereafter. They disbelieve. They're rejectors. God says none disbelieves except the transgressors and sinful. So if you are really righteous, God will guide you to it, and then you will believe, right? But if you're just someone who has doubts and you're a hypocrite, I mean, you're not going to believe in it. And that's why we see many people don't. Most people don't. Most people say that they believe in it, but most people don't actually believe in it. You know, they think that, well, maybe it will happen, or just in case it happens, I would just say I believe, you know. And even if they say they believe, I mean, you know, obviously if they actually believe, then they would be working towards making their hereafter better, right? It doesn't add up if you say you believe in something and then you end up committing sins when no one's watching. Clearly you're not worried about your hereafter. I mean, you're after other things. And so we see that especially, for example, if you look at the religious, professional religionists, I mean, how they cheat people out of their monies, how they deceive people, and how they're all about the money, you know. They're all about making money, and it's not about God. God says, when our revelations are recited to him, he says tales from the past. So many people will actually say with their lips that they believe in it, but inside their subconscious, they actually think these are just stories, right? They don't actually believe that they will be held accountable. And this is why, you know, people have the biggest problem with the end of the world. Also, as the messenger explains, they don't want to accept it. It makes them very uncomfortable. They say it's very dangerous. And the reason is that it makes it a reality, that they have to accept that it's going to happen, you know. And so, you know, they're disbelieving in it, but then if they accept that the world will end, then they have to know that it's going to turn into a reality, and they don't want to accept that, right? So they choose to disbelieve in it. And God says when they are thrown into this, God will tell them, this is what you used to deny. I mean, there's also many people that, don't believe in hell per se. Like, they believe in the day of judgment, they say they do, but obviously they don't. When you don't believe in hell, you don't believe in the day of judgment. And God says then when they are thrown into hell, God says they will be told, this is what you used to deny, right? So just a very sad ending, an unfortunate ending for humans like that. Obviously, God doesn't want a single soul to end up in hell, but it's something that the humans choose. That's why God sends the messengers. That's why God has sent us this book, so that we can be guided, so that we can be saved. But this is just what the humans choose to do instead. And God says that the book of the wicked is Sijin, right? And so what does that mean, right? So there's the Quran. God says this is the Sijin and the Iliyin. So it is a numerically structured book, but you can almost think of it as two books, But when the disbelievers see it, they see something completely different. They see something that just leads them to hell, right? If the disbelievers see it who don't believe in the Quran, right? They see it as an evil book. They see it by Satan. They see hell and all this stuff. And but if the hypocrites see it, they see verses that will compel them to do evil things. Like, for example, the traditional Muslims or the Muhammadans, they look at it, or they put Muhammad on a high pedestal and say, look, this verse is talking about Muhammad, and this verse means that we can beat women, and this verse means we can oppress women, and this verse means this, and they have a completely opposite thing. Like, they will look at this book and they'll say, oh yeah, well, the believers have a miserable life, and they'll be tested, and the believers will have everything. I mean, the disbelievers will have everything. So they have the whole thing. They just basically, they can't access it, right? And they'll find ways and means to idol worship, to take people's money, to do all kinds of stuff just by reading the Quran. And it will increase their wickedness. I mean, they will see verses like, for example, about the mathematical code or the messenger of the covenant, and they will not see the truth, right? And so it will increase their wickedness, and they'll disbelieve and they'll reject, they'll become disbelievers, right? So it just increases their aversion, it increases their wickedness. Same book, right? But for the believers, God says it is Iliyin, it is also a numerically structured book, and it will lead them to paradise. It will lead them to righteousness, and it is witnessed by those close to God, right? So the believers are close to God, right? And so only they can grasp the truth. God says none can grasp it except the sincere, right? So God willing, we are one of those creatures that can look at this book and use it for our betterment, use it to grow our souls and use it to become more righteous rather than becoming more and more arrogant and egotistical and everything evil, right? God says, verse 22, the righteous have deserved bliss. On luxurious furnishings they watch. You recognize in their faces the joy of bliss. Their drinks will be spiced with nectar. Its spice is like musk. This is what the competitors should compete for. Mixed into it will be special flavors. From a spring that is reserved for those close to me. So subhanAllah, God is talking about, allegorically talking about the hereafter, and how amazing and indescribably beautiful it is, and how you're going to enjoy God's blessings. And just when God talks about the drinks, if you just imagine, I mean, this is all allegorical, right? But still, I mean, you can understand to some degree based on these allegories that these will be amazing, delicious drinks, as God says, that will be spiced with nectar that is like almost like perfume. Obviously, I mean, if you try to put perfume in a drink, you'll never be able to drink it. But God says it spices like musk, and those drinks will be spiced with that nectar, and God said there'll be special flavors mixed into it. Now, of course, if you ever tasted the worldly drinks that people make, these cocktails, for example, and they put like tons of syrup in it and artificial flavors and everything to try to make it taste good. I mean, forget the alcohol anyways, right? I mean, even alcohol itself obviously adds to the horrible taste, but imagine something in the hereafter is really, God says this is what's worth competing for, is these, even just the drinks. Obviously, we're not doing all of this for those drinks, right? We're doing it because we love God. But, this is just an added bonus as you're saved. This is what you're going to get as a reward for your steadfastness, for your righteousness from choosing to worship God with your own free will and, choosing the right path despite Satan relentlessly, trying to skulk on the right path and, whisper into your chest just constantly, and you just kept on fighting and fighting. So you get rewarded by God because God says He's appreciative, right? That's not the objective, but this is the reward that God says awaits, and God is using that to motivate us, to remember that these things are real and this is what you will get. So just think about it and have some. It will give you more encouragement, right? More motivation to stay on the right track and to work harder and to be more righteous. None of the efforts that we're putting in this world, into pleasing God is going to be wasted, God willing. God says in verse 29, the wicked used to laugh at those who believed. When they passed by them, they used to poke fun. When they got together with their people, they used to joke. Whenever they saw them, they said, "These people are far astray. They have no such thing as invisible guards." Today, those who believed are laughing at the disbelievers. On luxurious furnishings, they watch. Most assuredly, the disbelievers are requited for what they did, right? So this is the unexpected turn of events that will happen for the disbelievers, that when they see the believers in this life, they are laughing at them, they're ridiculing them, and they believe that these people are just deceived by the religion, and they have no such thing as recording angels, and we can do whatever we want. And you can see these people do all kinds of things, right? And they think that the believers are just misguided people, that they are just imagining things in their heads. They say these people are far astray. Remember, these people are far astray, and they think that the believers are far astray. But God says, today those who believed are laughing at the disbelievers. So the believers are now the ones laughing at the disbelievers who were laughing at the believers when they saw them. They were mocking them and ridiculing them, right? So on the day of judgment, the believers will be laughing at those disbelievers, so God says, there's a saying that he who laughs best, and that's what's going to happen. The believers will be the ones to laugh at the end, and the joke is on them. So God says, most assuredly, the disbelievers are requited for what they did. So they'll pay for everything, including laughing and all this persecution and everything else that went along with that, right? Surah 84, the rupture, Al-Inshiqaq. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. The time will come when the sky is ruptured. It will submit to its Lord and expire. The earth will be leveled. It will eject its contents as it erupts. It will submit to its Lord and expire. O humans, you are irreversibly heading for a meeting with your Lord. As for the one who receives his record in his right hand, his reckoning will be easy. He will return to his people joyfully. As for the one who receives his record behind his back, he will be ridden with remorse and will burn in hell. He used to act arrogantly among his people. He thought that he will never be called to account. Yes, indeed, his Lord was seer of him. I solemnly swear by the rosy dusk, and the night as it spreads, and the moon and its phases, you will move from stage to stage. SubhanAllah. So, again, this chapter is titled The Rupture, and it talks about when on the day of judgment the sky will rupture. It will pretty much basically explode. It will not be able to withstand God's physical presence, and it will submit to its Lord and expire. This first universe and earth is not supposed to withstand God's physical presence. It's made as a tiny mote for Satan to prove his godhood, right? So when God comes, this will be destroyed, and God will be the only sovereign, the only true Lord and master, and everything else will be destroyed on that day. So that temporary dominion even itself is not gonna last at the end. The one that he ruled once. And God says the earth will be leveled, it will eject its contents and expire. So basically the earth itself is a submitted, earth also has a soul. So on the day of judgment, the earth will also die, and it will submit and it will expire. Our bodies even are part of this creature earth, so it will submit to its Lord and expire. God says, "O humans, you're irreversibly heading for a meeting with your Lord." So you can imagine in your head a countdown that just there's no way of stopping it. It's like in those movies you see, there's like a time bomb, and it's just going really, really fast, and you don't know which wire to cut to stop it, but there's nothing you can do about this one, right? It's just gonna happen at the end, and the whole thing is gonna explode. It's gonna be the biggest of any time bombs or anything disaster and destruction anybody has ever seen, right? And nobody can stop it. And God says, then the people will be classified into different categories, right? The believers will receive their record in their right hand. The disbelievers will be given their record behind their back. And of course, the believer's reckoning will be easy. He will be happy. He will return to his people joyfully. As you can imagine, God says it's a great triumph. Even just going to lower heaven, you have to be so thankful, because that person ends up missing hell after even making the stupidest choice to go through the test. Thank God, eventually you're still saved, because most people will not be saved, right? So, but obviously these are very fortunate people that it will be saved, and they will be so happy that finally God saved them. But on the other hand, the disbelievers will be ridden with remorse. And can you imagine the amount of regret and remorse that a disbeliever will have, knowing that he had this tremendous opportunity and he sees all these people going to paradise and they're going to hell? It's unimaginable, and knowing that they're going to burn in hell. And God says, about description of these people used to act arrogantly among their people. And because they thought that they will never be called to account, they thought that this day will not happen. But God says, indeed, his Lord was seer of him. And God says, I solemnly swear by the rosy dusk, by the sunset, and the night as it spreads, and the moon as its phases. So these are all things that we know. So and as a fact, so God says that based on all these things, you will move from stage to stage, right? So we have the first stage, now that we died and we came in this world, and then we go back into the earth, and then we emerge. So you look at it, for example, as the life cycle of, for example, flies and caterpillars, how they turn into butterflies, and moths, right? They grow up as these earth-ridden worms. They're born out of those eggs, right? Like we're born out of our parents' wombs and we're earthbound, and then they go into the larva stage, right, where we go back in the graves. But then on the day of judgment, we will all be airborne, and the believers will be like the butterflies, and the disbelievers will be like the moths, right? So these different stages, right? And you look at these different stages for one creature, say the butterfly. I mean, these are entirely different stages, right? I mean, they come out as completely transformed creatures, and this was what will happen on the day of judgment too. People will move from stage to stage, and I mean, in one stage, there are people that are kings and queens apparently on this earth, but on the day of judgment, I mean, they will be the more poor than anyone on earth that you know right now, and more miserable and in torment for eternity, right? So I mean, all these things are there, and God is reminding us every single time, so that we can think about it, and we can know what's real and what's not, and what counts and what doesn't, and we set our priorities straight. So with this, God willing, I'll end, and if you guys have any comments or questions, please feel free. Thank you.
Say for instance, you have, you want to invest into something, buy something small, and then sell it higher for capital gains purposes. Are you cheating someone for, having the intentions to do that?
Sorry, I actually don't hear anybody.
Um, can you hear me,
Hold on.
Suleman?
Yeah, there's something wrong because I can't hear you guys.
Yeah, I could hear you, brother. I think, yeah, God willing, Solomon's gonna get the issue sorted out.
Okay. All right. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, brother Solomon. Can you hear us or no?
Two screen open. Maybe that's the issue. Well, let me try to put it somewhere else. I think maybe on Chrome. Oh, I think I know what is wrong. Okay, 1 second. 1 second. I think I got it. 1 minute. Okay, I think that should fix it.
Okay,
Continue
can you hear me
speaking.
now?
Testing. Anyone?
Yeah, we
Something.
can hear you. Can you
Yeah.
hear us, brother Suleman?
I know you're saying something, but I still can't hear it. Oh god. Okay, 1 minute. Oh, this is microphone. No, wait. This is microphone. And hold on. Speakers. Speakers, come on. Okay, yeah. Okay. Now I should be able to hear you guys. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so my question to you was if you have intentions to, say, for instance, you buy something, some products like a low price and then sell it higher to someone else with the intentions of making capital gains, is that an issue?
No. Why would it be an issue? Because you have a profit margin?
Right, exactly. Because I'm thinking, is that cheating someone? You know, you're getting a higher return and considering you bought it lower.
No, I mean, the thing is, like, uh, I mean, you made effort, right, in buying stuff, and, like, for example, like, you imported it from somewhere, that's cheaper over there, and, so you made all this effort, and so it makes sense, like, you can do it. But, like, cheating would be like if you tell someone, hey, like, I'm selling you this thing, and this is like real gold, and then, they think that they're paying for real gold, and then but actually, it's like fake, right? So they, as long as they know what you're selling them, right, is not fake, and they know what they're getting, they're not deceived in any way, right?
Right, okay, I understand that.
Salãmun, I have a comment
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, brother.
on related to verse 7.
Mm-hmm.
The one who created you, designed you, and perfected you. I was recently watching something about human body. There are thousand muscles in the human body, and one of them is really fast, incredibly, like it's kind of giving man something to think. The eye muscle.
Mm-hmm.
Our eyes, as muscles, are so fast. Then, like the most fastest muscle in our body, and I
Mm-hmm.
was thinking if it's like how beautiful this human creation is, and that giving me the idea of the subduing the eyes. Also, like in the Quran, there is a commandment uh, how we should subdue our eyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, I don't know, what do you think about that? Just eyes muscles are so fast, and the other ones is not like that much fast. But the eyes are so fast, we can move them quickly in our daily life. I was thinking that way. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're into capturing stuff with your camera, so
Yeah.
God has given us, yeah, subhanallah. I mean, this is, the eye is actually, they say it's one of the, it's like the second most advanced organ. They, the scientists say it's the second most advanced piece of machinery in your body. So,
Yeah, I heard that too, brother. MashaAllah.
yeah, but I mean, if you look at it, there are so many other creatures that have, all different types of eyes, right? Like if you look at, for example, the chameleon, right? he has he has eyes that go in different directions, right? And his uh, field of view changes based on that, right? And then I was seeing how, like, for example, the turtle can see even more colors than humans, and God has designed all of these things. Like, he's so omnipotent. But you're saying that God has made the muscle fast so we can subdue our eyes quickly.
Yeah, that was my idea, like kind of in my daily life, you know, like because the movement of the eye, like that muscle actually working for the movement of the eye
Mm-hmm.
from right to left, up, like from top to down. They
Mm-hmm.
are so fast than other
Mm-hmm.
muscles in the body.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the idea.
Mm-hmm. Subhanallah.
And I have another comment for Surah 83, verse 7, 8, 9. Like the verse is talking about the Sijin, and after that, verse 19, Elaine.
Mm-hmm. Iliyin.
This Sij, Elaine, this Sijin, after the Sijin verse, like verse, after the verse 8, a numerically structured book.
Mm-hmm.
And also in 20, verse 20 says
Mm-hmm.
the same thing, a
Mm-hmm.
numerically structured book.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, it reminds me the verse that there are verses has multiple meaning,
Mm-hmm.
and some people will follow the
Mm-hmm.
and like take some uh, idea
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
if you
they will
remember the
follow it,
movie,
right?
if you remember the movie The Mask,
Hmm.
and you have the good guy and the bad guy, and when the good guy wears the mask, he gets all these powers to become better, right? And when the bad guy gets the mask, he uses it to be more evil. It makes him more evil,
Hmm.
right? And so really the Quran is just like it's it's a real thing, it's like a different book. There's like you can think of it as two different books, really, is how God has described it, right? These are like two different books. So the true Quran, I mean, it's not accessible, really. It's not accessible for an insincere person, so they cannot understand it the way a believer will understand it. It will just keep misguiding them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And it's also a hint for, I think it's also a hint for me, the adjective of numerically, like n numerically structured book, it it means the miracle of 19, right? Because we have a book numeric structure.
Yeah, I mean, so the thing is, the way I see it is, the Quran is a numerically structured book itself, right? But within the Quran, I mean, if you look at the subtitle, even, it says numerically structured books, right? So these are like inside the Quran, you have these two living books. You can think of it that way, right? They're both numerically structured, right? It's not just the Quran being numerically structured, it's that the Illeen and Sijin are also like, you can even think of it as God's creations, right? I mean, the Quran is unlike anything else, right? I mean, it's something that comes to life when the messenger is there, and but it also comes to life like depending on when you need to hear something, open the Quran, God will teach you something and stuff like that, right? So it's a creation of God, right? In that sense, the way I see it, but also it's so real that it's they're actually kind of two inside the Quran. There are kind of two separate numerically structured books that it's not like it's not like a vague concept, you know, like they're actual real two different books that are guiding and misguiding, you know. One is for the believers and one is for the disbelievers.
So just maybe Shajin could be numerically numbered and but not 19 as well.
Oh, sorry, I didn't get that.
Could Shajin be numerically numbered but not the number 19 as well?
Well, I mean, the number 19 is God's signature on the universe, right? So they're all mathematically composed, right? Even the human body is mathematically structured. All the creation has God's signature. It's God's signature, right? So, I mean, they do have God's signature on both of them.
I kind of came to the idea of this might be the hint for Miracle of 19. Maybe the verse 19 is telling us, do you know what alien is? I was like, maybe 19 is here. Verse 19 explaining, asking the question, do you know what alien is? Alien.
Yeah, I mean, they 19 is God's signature, right? And so God's signature is found on every creation that God has created, right? Including our bodies and everything else. So,
It's funny because not necessarily funny, but it says it will be a lean. So I'm thinking is indeed the book of the righteous will be a lean. So is that not present? Does that mean not present, but to come to?
okay, no, I mean, it is referring to the Quran, and God says that it's the Illeen and the Sijin. So it's Illeen for the believers and it's Sijin for the disbelievers. So Illeen guides you to do righteous, to be righteous, guides you to God, and then Sijin guides you away. So I mean, God says will be means like, you know, when I say like a believer will be guided when he opens the Quran, and a disbeliever will be misguided, right? So doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't exist. It just means that their book will be the Iliyin. So that means that
Uh,
that will be their book, right?
I
Mashallah.
see.
Yeah, yeah. And subhanAllah, well, this is not really so relevant, but I have the, well, maybe not so relevant, but I have the paper version of this Quran. And so it talks about Eileen and Sijin. And, you know, we said that the Eileen is verse 19, right? And so, anyways, this page ends with Surah 84, verse 19, right? Uh, where I stopped, actually. And this is actually, the page number is also 361, which is 19 times 19.
Hmm.
MashaAllah.
Yeah, 361. And 26, the same verse. The word of competitors. This is what the competitors should compete for. Uh, it's kind of what I understood from this verse. As a human being, we have that ego that sometimes affect our life in a bad way when and it put us in a position that we compete on something, kind of like for fame or for money or for something, like for lowly life. And it makes me a competitor in a bad way, but actually the competition is a feeling in my body or in my brain, right? It should be reconsidered after reading this verse, because there's nothing to compete except being more righteous or less. I mean, more righteous, being more
Yeah.
righteous, I guess.
I mean, imagine how people compete, for example, in Olympics, right? How much they
Yeah.
practice and everything, just for the worldly recognition. It's just for a medal, and but our hereafter is the real thing that we should all compete for. That the ranks in the hereafter are more important than anything else. So people should really compete for that. A lot of times people even do things like with regards to God, but they're doing it for other reasons. People just are competitive. They want to compete, but the reason for that is just to be competitive. Some people like to be ahead and feel good about themselves. But God says this is what the believer should compete for. Our objective should be our salvation in the hereafter, and to please God, so that we can be saved.
And Surah 84, verse 6 also. So huge proof when you think about the the planets and sun, how we are moving towards something. We know it's an end is coming. The end is coming. And the moving of that planets like around the sun, the whole galaxy is moving actually, right? It's not just turning around the sun. We are just constantly moving, like flying in the in the
Space.
west thing, and it's kind of the word of irreversibly. Also, like scientifically, we know that we cannot go back in time or we cannot move in time anywhere. You just live the present, and there's no way to escape from that dimension. It's kind of I don't know. It gave me that idea.
Yeah, you know how fast the Earth is flying?
Uh, I think I heard it. I forgot it.
Yeah. I mean, just a rotation of the Earth around the Earth's orbit around the Sun, right? It's an average speed of 18.5 miles a second. If you do it miles per hour, it's 67,000 miles an hour. The Earth is moving just around the Sun,
Hmm.
right? And then, yeah, so it's almost, they say it's in kilometers, about 30 kilometers per second, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. And the Earth rotates on its own axis at 1700 kilometers an hour.
It's huge, and we don't even.
Yeah,
That's
around
that's the
its.
thing. We don't even know. Like we don't even aware how fast we are moving in this
Yeah,
space.
yeah, it's quite extraordinary. The sun is also moving, right?
Yeah.
And so the sun is moving at, as we're moving around it, the sun itself is moving at 65,000 miles an hour, 650,000 miles an hour, I'm sorry. So there's a lot of movement going on. It's hard to even put our head around it,
Yeah.
you know. But it's God's design. I mean, imagine Like you don't even feel any discomfort or vibration or anything, right? God has made the whole system so perfect
Mm-hmm.
that you don't feel anything. And all this is happening with the earth being in one piece, not being, destroyed or bombarded with like meteors and things like that. God has set a specific time, and He has set the orbits in such a way that the Earth's
Yeah,
has survived through everything,
the
until
the
its time
creation of
comes.
Jupiter also, right? I heard that the Jupiter
Mm-hmm.
is kind of guarding all the
Mm-hmm.
matters
Also, yeah,
might,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, might affect the Earth orbit or something. Like it can give
Mm-hmm.
so much uh, danger for
Mm-hmm.
Earth, but the
Yeah.
Jupiter is just
Protects Earth
helping,
from
and
asteroids.
that
Yeah.
is, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It deflects comets and asteroids.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So,
So, and my last comment will be for verses 16, 17, 18, and 19, which is really um, like it's really important. God is doing everything in some stages, and
mm-hmm.
you can see those stages in everything actually.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the inside of the womb,
Mm-hmm.
the fetus, how many process
Mm-hmm.
he is having,
Mm-hmm.
she's having inside of that
Yeah. In the fetus.
darkness actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the fetus. It's in the darkness, but
Mm-hmm.
things happening,
Mm-hmm.
the millions neurons getting developed, or the
Mm-hmm.
cells, or the
Mm-hmm.
bones that you
Mm-hmm.
can't even imagine, like
Mm-hmm.
the structure of that bones,
Mm-hmm.
or the muscles that has like millions fibers in it. It's happening inside of a tiny uh, dark area. And the stage, when stage mentioned in Quran, it means a lot for me, like
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah, and God swears by the moon and its phases, right? If you look at the phases of the moon, I mean, those are different stages, you know, of the
yeah.
moon, right? God says the moon He designed in Surah 36, verse 39. God says that the moon we designed to appear in stages until it becomes like an old curved sheath,
Hmm.
right? So God is swearing by the moon, also saying that the we will also be in stages, right?
Yes.
MashaAllah.
Mashallah. Thanks for study, brother.
No problem. So anybody has any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I wanted to say a few things. I'm driving right now. I don't know how well. Can y'all hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
With the background noise?
Excuse me.
Yes, I can hear you, brother.
Yes, it's good.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sarah,
Well,
uh, 83.
oh, John.
Never fails to happen to John.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's always driving,
She,
He's flying through space.
Your
like,
brother
Yes.
John.
comes
John.
comes to mind. I think it's very
We lost you. Can you
okay.
start
Can y'all
over?
hear me? Because I was
We
just
can hear
talking,
you
and
now.
I don't
Yeah.
know if that. Uh,
Yeah, we can hear you now if you want to talk. Yep, now we can't hear him. All right. Okay, so I guess
Yeah.
okay, drum again. You're back. We can hear you now. Oops, he left. All right. Hey, drum, welcome back.
Hey, I think I was breaking. I
Yeah,
think I
pretty
was
badly.
breaking up.
So yeah, go
No.
ahead now.
Okay, yeah, it was just about the Sir 83, the cheaters. Like at work. Um, it's interesting to notice. With kind of what you were saying earlier. You see people cheating. And it comes in all different forms. Like it's. I think it's something you have to be conscious, aware about. Like for me, like when I think of the verse that says, an Adam's weight on the day of judgment, will be accounted for. So, like even, like if you take a nap on the job or something, or like there's such a thing like where I work called safety naps, but if you go over the limit or you abuse it or
Mm-hmm.
something, it can be real tricky because
Mm-hmm.
the devil can start, oh, well, just maybe you could take another one or whatever. But then it gets to a point where it's like it's good to be maybe more equitable and cautious. But it's just no, it's just something I noticed with I mean people you work with, they leaving, and then like if you get permission to leave early, but like if you're a contractor and you bill a certain amount of hours and you charge in, let's say, a set number of hours per day, but you're not fulfilling those hours, you didn't get permission to go home early or stuff. That's and it's I witnessed that. I actually see that where I work sometimes. People. And it's one thing to get permission, but it's another thing to do something like that. And that's just something, that I thought of oh, what if I did that? But then I was like, no way, because it just, it's not right. Like if it just simple stuff like that, it's if you bring that up, like if I were to bring that up to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
let's say that was doing that, they wouldn't really understand the point. And I actually kind of did talk to this person about this. I said, well, I said, it's not fair. I said, this company's paying you a certain amount of dollars to do this work for this many hours, but you're not working that hours. You're cutting out early, because there's no one really, there's no clock in or nothing like that. You just, no one's, you're out in these locations. No one's, you're kind of your own supervisor. So it's definitely a judgment call up to the person, but it's something that recently, in the past few months since doing this work, it's occurred to me. And it's funny because when I listen to the Quran, like on shuffle, sometimes I've been hearing this surah come on more and more often. And this is just stuff I've thought about. So it also inspired me to think about, like any other little ways, like I can, you know, maybe recommend people, that I'm around, that's all I had to, say about that.
It's
It's
ironic,
something.
John, that you say that because I just had the realization at work that I was playing too much table tennis, on my breaks, and it end up, all that missing time end up adding up to, them having to talk to me like multiple times, saying like, "Hey, you need to get back to work because you're missing, you're MIA, you're getting time off task." So I was just, like in one of the hallways, just thinking to myself, also even reading the Quran, just like I'm not being a man of my word first. Like if I'm going to, that's like my first thought I had is like, I'm going to work for a job. At least let me be, at most, let me be a man of my word. And I signed all these papers saying I'm going to do X and Y, so I need to deliver them Z. So it was, a realization for me that I was definitely not standing like on my own 10 toes. That I was just not being truthful, if anything. But I didn't see that because I was having way more enjoyment. Oh, let me just sneak like another 15 in playing this game, you know. But yeah, I can connect with that because it is something like
Mashallah.
not doing what you're supposed to do. Because I mean, and for me, it strengthened me. God willed it strengthened me because it's just like standing on your word. Just doing what you deliver as a man. So, alhamdulillah.
Right, mashallah. Yeah, I think it's important. It's wonderful. You can see it that way, and I kind of, I think back to what the messenger said. I think Brother Suleman brought it up in his discussion today pertaining to whatever verse, but like it's good to be hard on yourself. It's good to, like, for me when I think about stuff like that, it's sometimes it's easy. I guess part of you wants to, like, oh, you're overlooking something small like that, but then it's like, when I hear the Quran or remember what the messenger, the wisdom he always points back to the Quran. And for me, it's I want to be hard on myself and just err on the side of caution, and make sure I'm doing my part of the end. And mashallah, it's wonderful how the messenger, stating, some of our charities can sometimes pick up the slack, or Brother Suleiman stated earlier. I'm kind of badly paragraph or something.
You're the train stop.
How'd you know?
Yeah,
Because I could hear
yeah. I
it,
just call.
like
I just live
the
Well,
bell.
I just left the train tracks.
I'm at a train stop right now myself.
Oh, you guys,
Yeah, I also wanted to say it's interesting, like Surah 81, the rolling, Surah 82, the rupture, 84, I'm sorry, 82, the shattering, 84, the rupture. Like, those are some big names, for like real big events, and I always thought it was interesting how they're kind of grouped, kind of close together. You like that?
yeah, I mean, how God has structured the Quran to have these short surahs, all talking about the hereafter, and mostly all of them kind of towards the end of the Quran.
Right. Yeah, like Surah 101, the shocker is another one that's always kind of, not, I guess, scared me a little bit. I mean, yeah, it did scare me, but I guess invoked reverence, or maybe is a better way to say it.
All right, so if there are no other comments or questions, are there any comments or questions? More comments or questions? Okay, so I guess thank you all for joining us for the Quran study. God willing, our next English Quran study would be on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Salaamun Alaykum. God bless you
God
all.
bless.
God bless you.
Let's take care.
You too.
God bless you. Salam alaikum.